Good afternoon, and thanks very much for tuning in. I'm Stacie Pettyjohn, Director of the Defense Program here at the Center for a New American Security. Joining me here at the CNAS Virtual Fireside is General Paul Funk, Commanding General of U.S. Army Training and Doctrine Command. General, welcome and thanks very much for being here. Today, we're going to discuss the Army's people strategy and leader development, training, and education. Before we dive into the substance, I'll run through a few quick administrative notes. This conversation is public and will be recorded. We will post the video on our website after the event is concluded. We'll reserve about 5 to 10 minutes at the end of our session to take questions from the audience. To submit your questions, please use the Q&A function in the toolbar at the bottom of your screen. Please note that we will not accept anonymous questions. You need to identify yourself if you want your question asked. With that, I invite General Funk to make a few opening remarks.
Well, thank you. My name is Funk, and I'm an American soldier, and it's great to be here today. TRADOC motto is victory starts here. So thanks, Dr. Pettyjohn, for having me on, and to the Center for the New Americans Security for hosting this conversation today. It really is important. Over the last couple of months, TRADOC's conducted a series of think tank events like this as part of our Army campaign of learning. And we invited subject matter experts from several think tanks that provided insight on the leader development, training, and education within China and Russia. We are a threat-based Army, and TRADOC focuses on training the Army to mitigate that threat and provide overmatch. When our near-peer adversaries bring material parity to the fight, in some instances, how we train and educate our leaders and develop our people will make all the difference. With China as a pacing threat and Russia as a persistent threat, we continue to watch both closely. In addition to material advances, China's People's Liberation Army is also modernizing its doctrine, organization, and training. We need to pay attention to their multi-generational military-civil fusion, and we're focusing on educating our soldiers at all echelons about China and how they fight. The Russian Army is also focusing on its people. It has transitioned from a conscript-heavy mass mobilization force to a partially contract-based, more professional, high state of readiness force. Russia is trying to build trust between its army and the Russian people. They do this by treating Russian soldiers better, literally feeding them better, reducing the hazing their army is famous for, and improving recruits' ability to communicate with their families. At the same time, Russia's gray zone activities in the eastern Ukraine led to them hiding injuries and deaths from soldiers' families, thus destroying that trust. This is why it's so important for the U.S. Army to continue building trust with our soldiers and their families and with the nation. The Chief of Staff of our Army, General McConville, stated it best: we win with our people, and that is why people matter. Our nation's asymmetric advantage will be our ability to develop leaders and drive change, to lead our formations to fight and win on today and tomorrow's battlefields. And we are developing the training capabilities that deliver relevant and decisive training at the point of need in a multi-domain environment for the Army as part of the joint force. And we're bringing the training to the soldier, not the soldier to the training. The key to that is the synthetic training environment, which is an enterprise which will deliver 21st century training tools for our 21st century soldiers. One World Terrain, which is an updated, more realistic train capability. And we're going to train against and really use the best of breed across the world so that we can fight and win wherever we need to go. TRADOC's developing the Army Training and Leader Development Campaign Plan to deliver the Army's people strategy. The strategy outlines priorities to address threats and critical challenges. That strategy will help posture our greatest strength and most valuable asset, people, to ensure we win decisively in unified land operations. Whether today or tomorrow, winning is about compelling the enemy, and that means getting down in the dirt and taking and holding ground. That fact will not change for the Army. Only the best developed, educated, and trained leaders and teams we'll achieve that objective. That is why victory starts here. Thank you, Stacie, for that opening.
Thank you for that, sir. That's very interesting. And I'm very happy to see that you put our adversaries at the forefront of how you are approaching training and thinking about what you're trying to counter, because they're certainly focused on us. You mentioned synthetic training, which is of great interest and obviously a new area that the Joint Force is increasingly relying on. Can you talk a little bit more broadly about your vision for the future of Army training and how you'd like to see the Army's current training pipeline, training architecture, and approach to learning evolve?
Absolutely. First of all, we want to take the training to the soldiers to the point of need. We want to be there where they can train in their combat systems, on their combat platforms, or in the environments that they're in, whether it be the virtual, live, constructive, using gaming technologies. That's what we want to do. And we're every day trying to improve our capability to replicate the threat so that we're training against, as I said, the best of breed. On the education front, we utilize the pandemic to develop and begin to deliver over 1,000 courses across the spectrum of all of the centers of excellence to be able to deliver it in a blended fashion. Some of it's face-to-face, other pieces of it are delivered on networks and or recorded, and the soldier can get them when they need to. What we want to do is be able to continue to improve our force no matter where they are, when deployed, at home station, doesn't matter. We want to be able to keep continuous improvement in the forefront of our force. You mentioned one world terrain gives us the ability to replicate any place in the world down to very, very close to actual ground truth, no matter where it is. And what that's going to allow us to do is, whether it be squad all the way up to corps, we're going to be able to train on the terrain where we may have a chance to fight. That's what's going to be critical to us.
That's fascinating and fantastic. So continuing on this idea of training for great power war, our adversaries such as China and Russia are planning to disrupt and distort U.S. military communications and the information environment to make it difficult for U.S. forces to understand what's really going on. How are you preparing soldiers to fight in a degraded and contested command and control and information environment?
Well, as you know, we have the greatest non-commissioned officer corps in the world. And what that allows us to do is use mission command to develop the plans, execute the processes, and they understand to move on and fight with intent. No other army in the world is capable of doing that. And that's why we're going to be able to communicate, fight, and operate in a degraded mode no matter where we're at. Our soldiers will rely on their training, they'll rely on the intent of the commanders, and they'll understand the objectives of where they're going. That's what's going to make all the difference in the world, and that's why people are the number one priority for the United States Army.
Music to my ears. And my colleague, Chris Doherty, who just has a report coming out in a few weeks on command and information, which emphasizes exactly that point. So turning a little bit more to the education system that you have right now in the Army, you have a bunch of schools that are under your supervision, and they tend to be organized around the 10 centers of excellence. Right now, each of your centers of excellence is fairly siloed and tends to focus on one domain or particular aspect of warfighting, such as cyber, aviation, maneuver, fires. This structure seems a bit antithetical to multi-domain operations. Have you considered reorganizing your education system and centers of excellence to better prepare soldiers to converge effects across domains?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, great question, by the way, Stacie. And as a matter of fact, we're operating that way now through our captain's career courses. We're actually able to pair, for example, the maneuver captain's career course can partner with the fire center, and can bring in elements of the intermediate leader education out at Fort Leavenworth. So that at Leavenworth, they can write the orders at the division level, issue them to the maneuver captain or career course, and the career course can then build the operational plans and execute them across a gaming platform, which allows us the ability to actually replicate what it is they said they were going to do in their orders. It's a fascinating way to do this, and really the guy that's leading that charge is Jim Rainey, Lieutenant General Jim Rainey, and his CAC team out at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. They're doing a magnificent job on that piece. Our centers and schools, we have the Air Defense Force and the Fire Center together. For example, that's long range precision fires emanates out of there. So whether it be cannon based, extended range artillery, or rockets or air defense systems, they understand each other and how each other's fights. That's pretty important as we're conducting shaping operations, for example. We're also very much focused on the infantry and our armor force at Fort Benning, who then learn to fight on a heavy light or a light heavy platform so that they can deliver effects. That's what this is about. It's about delivering effects faster than our enemies can adapt, and that's what we're trying to get done. So, and where we bring it all together, what we want is we want to build the expertise up through the captain or the company level. Actual expertise. If you know anything about what Forces Command's doing now with their foundational training days and how they're focused on lethal companies and below, and then you bring it all together at the major level, which is at our PME out at Fort Leavenworth. That's where we begin to bring all the warfighting functions together to provide the mission command necessary to fight at division and higher, the echelons above brigade, as we like to say. So our education process pretty tried and true, to tell you the truth. And what we have been able to do is connect through the networks. That's allowing us the ability to do multiple reps and sets. So I'm actually pretty confident we know what we're doing in the education business.
Excellent. That's very reassuring and good to hear. Stepping back a little bit, I wanted to talk about the people strategy, which is at this point a couple of years old. It initially was focused on adopting 21st century talent management practices and is involved to include an emphasis on diversity and inclusion. It seems like it's worth sort of just taking stock of what you've achieved thus far. How do you think the effort's going? What have been some of the key accomplishments in the past few years?
Well, we're seeing a more diverse force. Now, it takes a while to grow a general, as you might imagine, and certainly as a 4-star general. So even in there, I was promoted to general in 2009. So it takes a little while to grow 4-star generals. They don't just drop out of trees. So as we develop the process and we move towards a more diverse force, I think you're going to see some exciting things coming up. I think the hard conversations we've been having about diversity and inclusion are really important to the nation. Our Army has always been that place where you could come and serve and achieve its highest levels. We got to continue to make it that way. So I'm encouraged by that. I'm encouraged by the amount of people that are wanting to serve. We've made our end strength goals, and we continue to that. We actually exceeded the officer strategy last year pretty significantly, which allows us to build some depth. So I'm encouraged by that. Always we can do better. And so why do I say that? Well, here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to have more, we'd like to have more ethnically based, broader spectrum of minorities in the highest levels of the Department of Defense. So we got to keep working on that. How do we do that? We do that through mentoring, through teaching, through assignment processes, through something like recognizing the talent and doing talent management, 21st century talent management processes, putting people in hard positions, watching them perform, and helping them get to the next level. It's really recognizing the talent that we have. Oh, we're so fortunate. Our Army and really the whole Department of Defense is really talented. And so we just got to recognize it, continue to grow, and continue to develop the very best to perform. So I'm encouraged by it.
That's great. So turning to the issue specifically of recruitment, there is a lot of talent in the Army for sure. But one of the areas that there has been a need to recruit more individuals has to do with those who are data scientists and have a background in information and sort of this is because for multi-domain operations, you need to make decisions faster, assisted by artificial intelligence, and compile, analyze information. And this is also a sector where individuals can go and work for a private corporation and make a very good living for themselves. So how is the Army thinking about recruiting and retaining people with the right skills for great power competition? Or are you focusing on growing those skills within the force?
It's actually both. I mean, down at Futures Command, I think you know about Futures Command, and at Futures Command, we just opened the software factory. We're developing our own data scientists and our own modeling guys and gals, and it's a tremendous asset. It'll take a while to build some depth there, but we found those talents in the force itself. Excuse me. So that's very encouraging. When I was out at one time was the CAC-T, which was the training guy for the Army. And what I found was we had a lot of modelers and simulators, talent just in the ranks, people that did this as part of a hobby. They like to get in and develop models for buildings and things like that. So finding those key skills and keeping them in by letting them do the things that they're really interested in, very important. The data scientist piece, everything's going to be driven on data, just like you said, and the Army's no different. But at the end of the day, we still got to be able to compel people and get in the dirt too. So it's always a delicate balance. I think that on the civilian side, we can find a lot of talent there where people get to come in and use the tools they want to do to actually, compete with our adversaries. And competition matters, winning matters. And I think getting to use those skills and those tools excites a lot of young men and women. And so that's a good thing too. I think that, information, as you said, it is an element of national power. It is. And we have to learn how to work and live and fight and win in the information environment. Sometimes that might be just by getting your message across. Sometimes that might be about, countering a narrative that is growing. But at the end of the day, in the information environment, we're coming out with some new doctrine. We're pushing new doctrinal threads on information advantage, on being how to compete in the information environment, where to look, how to find the talent. TRADOC will pretty soon this year pick up the public affairs school as well. And then we'll have them as part of one of the centers of excellence, coupled with what we're doing at Fort Gordon and other places. I'm encouraged about what we're doing in the information environment. It needs to move faster, and certainly we'll have puts and takes along the way. But in the information environment is where the narrative of the people, and it goes to building trust. That's why we've got to be good at it.
That's really good to hear and encouraging. One of the things, though, is that still in the world today, the private sector's on the cutting edge of innovation in this space. Are you considering changing any policies or adopting some unconventional models for training that would enable people to enter service and then cycle out to train or work in the private sector so they maintain their currency, or any other sort of ideas along those lines?
Oh, absolutely, Stacie. What's neat about what's coming up, we're using a new process called IPSA, which is going to allow us to look at the depth and breadth of the talent in the total force, at least in the Army, from the Guard, the Reserves, and people want to serve, and they want to serve. Your point is exactly right. Some might want to come in for 2 years, might be just incredibly compelled to serve the nation, but they only want to come in for a couple of years, use their very special skills, and then move on, or perhaps go to the reserve or go to the National Guard. With the new system, it's going to allow us the ability to see that, to help move people in and out of those of the components, which is really a whole new people strategy. I mean, it really is. If you can call somebody to active duty for a couple of months to run some sort of information campaign, for example, and then return them back to their incredibly lucrative professions on the outside, that's using talent when you at the point of need, and that's what we want to be able to do.
That's great. One of the other barriers that sometimes is pointed to is the fact that there's so much turnover. Soldiers change jobs every year, maybe 2 years, and they also have to often physically relocate, which makes it difficult for them to develop really deep expertise in certain areas. And it also creates challenges for military spouses who have a career.
Yeah.
Are you considering any reforms to the current PCS system to create more stability?
Great question. And absolutely, we're trying to do all of that. As a matter of fact, that's part of the Chief of Staff Army's Quality of Life Initiative. We are absolutely trying to put talent where it needs to be used and actually allow it to grow. We're considering as long as 7 year. Some families could be someplace 7 years at one time. So I use 7 as just an example. Could be longer than that, could be a little shorter, but we understand the need for stability and to develop deep qualifications in some of these very specialty skills. Absolutely. Yeah, and I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about our great Army spouses who we because it's almost Mother's Day, Stacie. So if I don't say something about our Army moms, and I'll be in deep trouble because my mother's a Army mom, and so is my wife. So I don't want to be a treat. So thank goodness we have them. Every one of us our Army couldn't run without its great Army spouses. The volunteer work that they put in, the special skills they bring to the fight, everything from running family readiness groups to actually running all kinds of different programs in our Army. And our dual military couples, good Lord, it is truly a diverse force, and we all have to be in it together. It is a way of life. It's not just for the, it's not easy, but I sure do love it.
That's good. So I'm going to turn to some questions from the audience here. We have one from Sydney, and he's asking, what will change for Army units in terms of training and organization as the Army turns multi-domain operations from a concept into doctrine?
Yeah, well, is that, that's not Sydney, Montana, is it? Is that Sydney Friedberg or somebody like that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So Sydney, I think you know about the multi-domain task forces we're already developing. We're looking everything from theater level armies and fires commands all the way down to strategic batteries of artillery. So everything's going to change in some form or fashion, except for the fact that people live on land, and the Army's got to dominate on the land force.
David asks, he said the Marine Corps and some other nations such as Canada and the UK use wargaming to get in reps and train leaders. What's TRADOC's view on wargaming? We
do that as well. We also do it for experimentation. We do it for campaigns of learning. Our wargaming capability, we can do everything from virtual battle space 3 all the way up to the large constructive gaming systems we can use. We use it all the time, almost every day, as a matter of fact.
I have run some war games for TRADOC in the past, so I'm
very. I'll let you answer that question.
Byron has a question about synthetic training, and he said right now it's focused at the squad and small unit level, and he's inquiring about your assessment of synthetic training for larger units, particularly in a 2025-2030 time period.
I think it's going to be magnificent. I've seen the embedded trainer on the new tank. I've seen our ability to replicate pieces of terrain almost to down to the doorknob level. And so if you can be immersive in the environment, it's going to change everything we do. So what I could see, for example, is tethering together of actual combat systems and projecting through their baseboards or whatever it is you're going to need, projecting them fighting on terrain in Europe and sitting in a motor pool at Fort Stewart, for example. The sky's the limit on this. It's really something else to see. I love to see these cameras and things and how I jumped out of an airplane and I'm not even qualified last year. I'll tell you, this will be something else. It's really, really good.
We have a question from Jill, who's asking what tools you've used to identify digital skills in the current force.
I'm not the big talent expert on digital skills training. I can't even type hardly, so I can't really answer that, Jill. But I'll tell you what, if she'll type that out, we'll send her an answer on that.
Okay, I have a question from Sean, who wants to hear about future plans for the Mad Scientist initiative.
Oh, that's my favorite. What the Future Scientist program does is explore all these hard problems and get some of the greatest minds in our nation together to develop solutions and really talk about the hard problems. So we've got a bunch of things online getting ready to do. We're looking at climate change through 2021 into 2030. That's the next big problem we're examining through the Mad Scientist program. If you're not on the TRADOC homepage and haven't looked at what we're trying to do in that Mad Scientist program, you're missing out.
That's fantastic. One final question before we run out of time from Paul. He said you have a rule number 13, which says that a leader should never go anywhere without a knife.
Yeah.
And he said he wanted you to identify a few of the knives that you consider to be indispensable.
Well, anyone that allows you to put it in a young man or woman's hand, hand it to them and have a conversation. So Paul, almost all of those fundamentals there are about having a conversation with some younger man or woman on a battlefield somewhere. And that one is in fact very important, because what it allowed me to do is one day when a kid was having one of the worst days of his life was sit down, open an MRE together, and just have a conversation about war, about how much soldiers hate war, and how we don't like losing our friends. So that's when I learned. That's the day I learned always carry a knife. So thanks for that great question.
Well, with that, I think we are running out of time. Thank you, General Funk, for joining me today. I've really enjoyed having this conversation.
Thanks, Stacie. Anytime.